Nicholas Sheley is an American ex-convict accused of 8 murders across 4 towns in Illinois and Missouri. Here is the unique timeline leading up to Nicholas Sheley's senseless murders. Nicholas Troy Sheley was born July 31, 1979, to James and Debra Sheley. Nicholas had a history of drug and alcohol abuse as well as criminal history. Nicholas married his first wife in the 1990s and had 2 children before the two divorced in 2001. Before the divorce, his wife filed for a protective order in 1997 and then again in 2000. And on the records was a judiciary from the 2000 protective order saying, "The court has never seen more extensive injuries on face of a victim." While in prison, Nicholas started dating Holly Gall. In 2003, he filed for a restraining order from Holly, but it was dismissed due to lack of evidence. The two had 2 children together while dating in addition to her 2 children from her previous relationships. Holly and Nicholas married on May 10, 2008. On June 3, 2008, Nicholas was arrested for driving on a revoked license and driving under the influence. While awaiting the court proceedings on this case, Nicholas committed a robbery of an elderly woman. He was suspected of that crime, but there was not enough evidence to charge him just yet. Nick and Holly lost their home and moved with their children to a trailer on Holly's mother's property. His mother-in-law gave clear rules that the couple was not to consume alcohol or drugs on the property. For a while, that seemed to be okay, and Nick and Holly were doing okay. Then Nick and Holly took out a loan on their car. They used some of the $1,000 loan to buy drugs and alcohol. Then things suddenly went wrong. The murder of Russell Reed. Russell Reed was a 93-year-old farmer living in Sterling, Illinois. He drove his Buick to the local restaurant almost every morning to enjoy breakfast and coffee. He failed to show up at the local eatery on June 24 and 25 of 2008. The elderly farmer had no enemies, and his 2 sons could think of no reason anyone would want to hurt him. Unfortunately, this was only the start to a terrifying killing spree that would shock Illinois and Missouri residents. That day, June 23, 2008, Nick relapsed on his drug and alcohol addiction and so started a killing spree. Nick beat 93-year-old Russell Reed while robbing the 93-year-old for more money to purchase drugs and alcohol. He left the body in the trunk of Mr. Reed's vehicle, which was found on June 26. On June 28, before he was identified as a suspect in the Reed murder, Nicholas Sheley robbed 65-year-old Ronald Randall at a car wash in Galesburg, Illinois. Ronald Randall, known to family and friends as Ronnie, was born April 17, 1943. He was a United States Army veteran. He had retired in 2004 after more than 30 years at Maytag. Plus he was a loving father and grandfather. On June 28, 2008, before he was identified as a suspect in the Reed murder, Nicholas Sheley robbed 65-year-old Ronald Randall at a car wash in Galesburg, Illinois. He murdered Randall and hid his body behind a grocery store, stealing the man's truck. Then it was the triple murder horror scene, which was literally like a murder off a movie. On the evening of June 28, 2008, Nick Sheley used Randall's stolen truck to drive to Rock Falls, Illinois. An ex-boyfriend of his new wife lived there with his current girlfriend, her child, and a roommate. When Nick arrived at the home of Holly's ex-lover, Brock Branson, we found that the man wasn't home. His 25-year-old roommate was home, however. Nick took a hammer and beat Kenneth Olve to death. Kenneth Olve was born April 13, 1983. He was a roofer for Terry Ratliff Construction. He was survived by his son Caden as well as parents and siblings. He was just a nice kid who was in the wrong place at the wrong time, as Uncle Rick Olve would later say. He had made plans to move from the apartment in just a few days. When his roommates arrived home, Nick Sheley continued his killing spree. Brock Branson was born October 16, 1978. He enjoyed fishing, boating, listening to music, and traveling into the mountains. He had been working as a trucker for 5 years. While on the road, he made a stop in Utah and met a cashier named Kalina Blake, known as Kai. He fell in love and moved to be with her and her young son from a previous relationship. Kai was born May 23, 1988, in Cedar City, Utah. She became pregnant at 18 and gave birth to her son Diane on April 19, 2006. She worked hard as a single mother to provide for her son. Then she met and fell in love with Brock. Eventually, the couple moved back to Illinois to be closer to Brock's daughter, who was 10 at the time. When Brock, Kai, and 2-year-old Diane returned to their apartment, they were attacked by Nick Sheley. He beat all 3 of them to death with the same hammer he had killed their roommate with. He showed no mercy to the toddler or his parents. All four of their bodies were found June 30, 2008. The crime shocked the Midwestern communities. While Nick Sheley was the prime suspect, he was nowhere to be found. He was on the run. When Nicholas was on the run, he went to smoke crack with a couple that lived in Sterling. He then asked them where he could cash a check on the same night 93-year-old Russell Reed was killed.
Did you hear a knock at your door?
Yes.
What did you do upon hearing that knock?
I looked outside the window to see who was there.
Okay, so you could see down from your window?
Yes, from my son's room.
Okay. And who did you see was there?
Nicholas Sheley.
It seems like she is smirking throughout this video when she is testifying. Look closely.
Did you go to the door on Miss Gonzalez?
No.
What happened when you heard the knocking at the door?
I looked to see who it was, and then I told my husband not to answer it.
Okay. Did your husband answer the door?
Yes.
What happened after he answered the door?
He invited Nick into the house, and they came upstairs.
So when you get to the top of the stairs, you're kind of in the living room?
Yeah.
Okay. Where were you when your husband and Nicholas Sheley got to the top of the stairs?
In the living room, sitting on the couch.
Were there lights on?
Yes.
Was there a TV on?
Yes.
At this point the vibe was off, and little did they know they were standing in front of a murderer. But then Amber noticed something.
When Mr. Sheley came upstairs, did you notice anything unusual about him?
Yeah, blood on his clothes.
Can you describe what you saw, please? What kind of clothes was he wearing?
It was blue jeans, like light blue jeans, and then a darker shirt.
Discussion there was.
My husband asked about the blood on his shorts, and he said he made a joke about just killing somebody, and then he laughed afterwards. And then he said he was just joking that he'd been fishing all day, that he was gonna fish.
You spoke quietly and very fast. I'm not sure I understood you. You said your husband asked about the blood on the shorts?
Yes.
Okay, what did Mr. Sheley say in his first response?
That he just got done killing somebody.
And then what did he do?
He laughed afterwards.
Making a joke like this only proves Nick's psychopathy nature, traits common to some serial murderers, including sensation-seeking, a lack of remorse or guilt.
And then he changed what he had said?
Yeah, he said he was joking that he was fishing all day and he was gonna fish.
Okay.
Then it was the senseless murder of Tom and Jill Estes. Thomas Estes was born December 28 in St. Louis, Missouri. He married Jill Weber Estes on May 26, 1973. Jill was born March 13, 1954, in St. Louis. Originally from Missouri, the couple moved to Arkansas where Tom worked for the Union Pacific Railroad and Jill worked with special needs elementary students. They were a happy little couple who enjoyed each other's company, said a former co-worker of Jill, Holland and McDermott, 2008. They were animal lovers, parents to a son and daughter, and grandparents at the time of their death. On June 29th, Tom and Jill Estes were attending a graduation party in Festus, Missouri. The couple, who lived in Arkansas, were attacked outside their hotel room and brutally murdered by Nicholas Sheley. He placed both their dead bodies in the truck of Ronald Randall, which he was still driving around, and hid them behind a gas station. The motive appeared to be robbery for drug money. Their bodies were also found June 30th. These were the murders that made police desperate to find Nick Sheley and stop the killing. On July 1st, Nick Sheley was spotted outside the St. Louis Cardinals game. He asked to use a phone, deleting the call history after making a call. The calls were traced, however, to a suspected drug house in the area. Later that day, patrons at a bar in Granite City recognized Sheley, as his photo was plastered all over the news, and called authorities. Nick Sheley was taken into custody outside the bar. His week-long murder spree came to an end but left 8 people dead. As the prosecution prepared their case, they found DNA at the crime scenes belonging to Sheley. They found surveillance of him wearing the victim's clothing. They found DNA from the victims in the stolen truck. They also found Holly Sheley's DNA in the truck. When confronted, she agreed to talk in exchange for immunity, which was granted. She said that after Nick stole the truck, he picked her up. She said she noticed blood in the truck. They drove out by a canal where they had sex. She would later testify that, "I felt like my butt was getting a little cold or a little wet." When we came underneath the street lamp, I had blood all over my hands. She said she freaked out but agreed to have sex with her husband to keep the peace. She didn't come forward until a year later when her DNA was found. Nicholas Sheley was found guilty of Ronald Randall's murder by a Knox County jury in 2011. He was convicted in Whiteside County in October of 2011 for the murder of Russell Reed along with burglary and home invasion charges. He was found guilty of the murders of murdering Brock Branson, Kalina Blake, Diane Blake, and Kenneth Ove in 2014. He was sentenced to life in prison for Ronnie Randall's death plus 30 years for stealing his truck. He was given a life sentence for each of the other 5 Illinois victims. He is not eligible for parole.
Home invasion or residential burglary was proven beyond a reasonable doubt. We, the jury, find the allegation that the defendant at the time of the commission of the offense of first-degree murder had attained the age of 18 or more, and the murdered person was 60 years of age or older, and the death resulted from exceptionally brutal or heinous behavior indicative of wanton cruelty was proven beyond a reasonable doubt. We, the jury, find the allegation that the defendant committed the offense of first-degree murder against a person 60 years of age or older at the time of the offense was proven beyond a reasonable doubt. And the last charge, we, the jury, find the allegation that when the defendant committed the offense of first-degree murder, the murder was accompanied by exceptionally brutal or heinous behavior indicative of wanton cruelty was proven beyond a reasonable doubt.
Missouri still has the death penalty, and he would face that for the murders of Tom and Jill Estes. The pretrial preparations, complicated by his other cases in 2 Illinois counties, took a very long time. In 2017, Nicholas Sheley pled guilty to 2 counts of first-degree murder in Jefferson County, Missouri. In exchange for his plea, the prosecutor took the death penalty off the table. He was sentenced to life without parole in Missouri. He is currently servicing his time in Illinois. At his Missouri sentencing, Nick Sheley got on his knees and apologized for his crimes. He said he hoped God would use him to help other prisoners. He said he regretted his actions and quoted the movie Shawshank Redemption. His words did not impress the victims' families. "You know what it's like to be in the presence of pure evil. You can feel it as soon as he walks in the room," Patrick Steed, the Estes' son-in-law, said. He told interviewers that he believed his wife was having an affair with her ex, Brock Branson. His family claims his drug and alcohol addiction turned him into a different person, and he is a good man deep down. In another development, Sheley's parents were arrested in relation to child sexual abuse charges in 2019. That case is still pending. Sheley's brother is also in prison on drug-related charges. His wife, Holly, tried to claim some reward money shortly after being arrested for her own DUI in 2009. Nick and Holly's marriage ended in divorce in 2013. Nick is housed at the Lawrence County Correctional Center and is ineligible for release. He will spend the rest of his miserable life behind bars.
Nicholas Sheley here is innocent of all the charges until, and only until, you determine that the state has proven him guilty beyond a reasonable doubt.